Thriving with Vision Loss with special guest Nikki Watson. This is a speaker view interview with Michelle wearing a purple shirt, purple headband, and purple hair, and Nikki sitting on a brown couch with a beige wall behind her. She has longish gray hair and a maroon sweatshirt.
Hey everyone, today I get to do an interview I've really been looking forward to. Before I found my mission helping the blind and low vision community to thrive, I spent more than 30 years as a horseback riding instructor. Horses were my world, my job, my identity, and honestly, they were my home. Horses seep into your very being the way that you could never understand or explain to anyone who hasn't done it before. Today's conversation feels really personal to me, and you'll likely hear us horse girling out. If you have any questions about what in the world we're talking about, just drop them in the comments and we'll try to explain it to you. Today, I'm joined by Nikki Watson, founder and administrator of the Blind Riders Network, a global Facebook community connecting blind and low vision equestrians. Nikki lives in Great Britain and is an avid rider. Like me, she didn't grow up with an equestrian family. She simply arrived in the world a completely horse crazy kid and never grew out of it. This is Thriving with Vision Loss, an eleVIVO original series sharing real stories, practical tools, and lived wisdom from people building meaningful lives and thriving with blindness or low vision. eleVIVO supports individuals and families navigating vision loss and works to help agencies, nonprofits, and public systems to work more effectively. Nikki, I'm really excited to hear your story. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you for inviting me here to talk to you today.
Oh, are you kidding me? This is so much fun, and I've made a new friend. This has been great. Have you always been blind, or did your vision change over time?
I've never seen properly, although I have seen something. I was born with a recessive form of retinitis pigmentosa, and I don't remember ever being able to see in the dark. In fact, I don't think my brain knows it's possible to be able to see in the dark. So as a child, no night vision, increasing tunnel vision. I was very short-sighted. And then as I got older, obviously the tunnel got smaller and smaller and smaller, and I became more and more photosensitive. Um, I've probably been functionally blind for about 20, 25 years now. I say functionally blind because I've still got some light perception, but it's no use whatsoever. In fact, it's a complete hindrance. It just makes life uncomfortable. So a lot of the time you'll see me wearing very dark, dark glasses if I'm out of the house. So in the UK, we have a system of registration which is now called sight impaired or severely sight impaired. Used to be called partially sighted or blind. And I was registered partially sighted when I was 10 years old, and I was registered blind when I was 17 years old. And as I say, I'm now 58, approaching 59, and I've probably been functionally totally blind for about 20, 25 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
So, how did horses first enter your life? What happened? How did you find them?
Well, they found me really. I don't come from a horsey background, as you said in the introduction. My dad was in the Navy and my mum was just a ordinary everyday housewife, and no horses known at all. But for some reason, as well as being born with RP, I was also born with a very serious attack of the horse bug. And I just, from the get-go, all I wanted to do, if I read a book, it had to have a horse in it. All my toys had to be horses. My bike was a horse. My dad even made me a hobby horse. He cut a piece of wood in the shape of a horse's head and stuck it on a broomstick so I could gallop around pretending I had a horse.
Yep.
But and I lived in the city of Plymouth, which is in the far southwest of the United Kingdom. And on one side of it is the sea, and on the other side of it is Dartmoor. And I grew up on,
Please.
yeah, ponies. And I grew up on the Dartmoor edge of Plymouth. And you could actually, if you were really feeling adventurous, you could walk from my house to the moor.
Hmm.
So I was always seeing ponies. There were lots of horses in fields around me. So horses were kind of always there in my psyche, but not in my life. And then little girl who lived in the house next door, she was horse mad as well. So we became firm friends and we played with our toy horses all the time. And then she started to have riding lessons when she was about 7 or 8 years old. She's a tiny bit older than me. And I nagged and nagged and nagged and nagged. And my mum wasn't having, my mum was terrified of horses. My mum was absolutely terrified of horses. Dad, not so much, but mum was. And also, little girls who can't see very well don't do that sort of thing. That was what my mum believed and was told. So, oh no, people like us don't do that. People like us don't do that. People like us don't do that. But eventually, and I actually credit my next door neighbour, my friend's mum, for this. She took me out to the riding stables a couple of times when Angie, my friend, was having lessons, and so I could watch. And I think she convinced my mum to let me have a go. And it will be 50 years this year that I first had a riding lesson. I know I was 9 years old. I know it wasn't a birthday present. I don't, but it wouldn't have been very far after my birthday. And the rest, as they say, is history. I rode at a local riding school on the edge of the moor. I learnt riding on the moor. I didn't learn in a school. I didn't ride in an arena until I was about 14 or 15.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
all my riding was very practical, not very stylish, probably, but very practical. And yeah, so that was it. Unfortunately, when I was 11 years old, I was sent to a boarding school for children with sight problems, and I wasn't allowed to ride there.
Oh no.
I saw it held me back. I could only ride in the holidays until I was about 15. And then suddenly one of the teachers said, why don't you go to a local riding school at the weekends? You're allowed to go out at the weekends. Why don't you use your exeat to do that? So I did start riding there. And that was an amazing place because it was in the city. And this was a long way from home. This was up the city of Coventry, which is in the Midlands in Britain and about 250 miles away from where I lived at home. And the riding school was in the city, and they had some fields. And again, they didn't have a proper arena, but they used to put cones out and mark out arenas in the fields. But they had jumps and gymkhana equipment and a small cross-country course. And basically, the instructors there went, oh, you can't see then. Fair enough. 3, 2, 1, jump.
That is such a riding instructor thing to do.
Yeah, and they used to have do your flat work in one field, and then if you wanted to jump or use any of the equipment, they used to make you jump the fence into the next field.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. I have two British riding instructor friends, and I can so see them doing it.
Yeah, yeah. The guy there was an ex-army instructor. And he was really, really impressive. It's the first time I'd ever been taught by a bloke, and I have to admit that at 15 years old, I was an impressionable girl, and I did have a bit of a crush.
Of course you did.
Yeah. But
I mean, a man that does horses, I mean, that's a dream come true.
yeah, absolutely. That school and went home to Plymouth again. I went back to riding at the same place I'd ridden as a kid, basically. So that was me as a learning to ride as a child and how horses came into my life, really.
Yeah. So when we were young, so many of us dreamed about working with horses, but adults didn't really see that as practical. I mean, my own guidance counselors at school were like, really? No, you shouldn't do that. The only person that really believed that I should was my riding instructor, Barbara Johnson. That was it. So did that happen to you too?
Yeah, quite dramatically. All I ever wanted to do was work with horses. Oh, the only thing I ever really wanted in my life was horses. I wasn't really interested in much else, to be honest. And when I was about 14, probably 13, 14, I think when we were taking our options to take our O levels, which back then were the sort of the 16-year-old exams in the UK. they took you in for careers advice, and the teacher said, so what do you want to do when you leave school? And I said, I want to be a riding instructor. And she basically burst out laughing and laughed me out of the room.
Cool.
And she just said, it's not going to happen. Get real, grow up. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it was, to be honest, that had quite a major effect on me, together with the fact that by this time it was, I'd kind of woken up to the fact that I was going to get, I mean, I knew because my brother has the same condition, he's 10 years older than me, but I'd woken up to the fact that I was going to lose my sight and going through all these teenage changes that you go through. I'm not at home, I'm in a boarding school, and I get this response. And I was also quite badly bullied because I was the girl that had pictures, centerfolds of horse magazines on my wall above my bed, not the latest pop stars. And it had all of that combined had quite an effect on me, and I became quite an angry, anti, don't want to go, probably, although these things weren't diagnosed, I probably had quite bad depression and all that sort of stuff. And I think that really contributed to it.
When they rip your dreams away,
Yeah.
it's just so cruel.
It went through this thing, and to be honest, it took me a very long time to grow out of it. I think it was probably in my 30s when I eventually grew out of it. If somebody told me it was black, I'd go out of my way to prove it was white. You know? Yeah.
You and I were the same kid. We really were. When only a couple years apart. I completely understand that. You are my sister. A lot of us horse girls went through a lot of the bullying and all of that, in school. And, you had the added problem of also being blind.
Yeah.
So that's not even,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's no joke. So anyway, so in the UK, genetic counseling happens pretty early. How did that news influence how you saw your future?
Yeah, that was fun as well. Again at school, they always talked about it. Like the older kids would always say, "Oh, genetic counselling is happening, blah blah blah," and you didn't think about it. But in your kind of last year before you left the school, and I was planning to leave when I was 16, 17 after I'd done my exams, they would arrange for you to have this genetic counselling. The first thing I knew about it was when I phoned home. We had set phone calls. I phoned home and my mum said, "What if I had a letter from Birmingham Maternity Hospital?" And I'm thinking, what?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My mother had flipped.
Yeah, well, actually, she'd read it, so she knew what it was. But that's what she said. Why have I had a letter from Birmingham Maternity Hospital? And I'm like, excuse me. So what happened was the school had a sick bay, and they would call you into the sick bay at a set time. You walked into an enormous, like a big room with like a conference table in it. You sat at one end of the conference table on your own. There was no appropriate adult, member of staff, friend, counsellor, or anything like that with you. This was 1984, by the way. Okay. And at the far end of the table, there were 4 or 5 white-coated medical types. And they basically looked at me and said, "Oh, Nicola, yes, you have retinitis pigmentosa. There is no cure. You will probably be blind by the time you are 21. You will probably never work. Goodbye."
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah. And that is, I mean, and the thing is, I knew I had retinitis pigmentosa. I knew I was going to go blind because, as I say, I have an older brother with the same condition. But the way it was delivered, it was like, "Oh, stand there, little girl." And I was quite an immature 16, 17-year-old. I have to say, I was still very much a little girl as opposed to a young woman. And it was like somebody they stood there and said, "Just stand there while we kick you in the gut."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd feel that way even in my 50s.
Yeah. It wasn't, and you'd like to think that today that wouldn't happen. You'd like to think there would be a lot more care taken. You'd like to think that anybody going through that below the age of 18 would have an appropriate adult with them. But yeah, as I say, this was the 1980s. It was a different time back then.
Yeah, we were Gen X. Basically,
Yeah.
they kicked us and we were
Yeah.
feral.
And really it did. I can remember walking out of that, and I always remember it because it was a bit snowy, and
Mhm.
and it was lunchtime, and I walked back up to lunch and sat down and just sort of sat there and burst into tears. And like all my friends who have also, got various different conditions, and some of them they had more than just not being able to see.
Mhm.
And I'm just sitting there, and they're like, and I'm like, you're going to think I'm really, really stupid because you know that I know this, but this is just what's happened, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it any easier.
No. And it also added to an extra layer of angry,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, that would have added several extra layers of angry to me too.
Mm.
And some pretty thick layers of angry, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what came next? What did you do next?
So I left that school because I really wasn't very happy there. And I went home and I went to mainstream education to do what in here in the UK we call sixth form. So that would be, I don't know what the equivalent is in the US, but what would be A levels here. So the highest level of sort of school education you can get before you go on to college, university, and
Kind of
stuff
like high
like
school
that.
here.
Yeah.
So that would be like high school in the US.
Yeah. So basically, I went there and I was, again, I was going to go to what's known as the College of Further Education. And a social worker stepped in and said, "Oh, no, you won't be able to do that. We're going to send you to a school." And they sent me to an all-girls Catholic school, which was just up the road from where I lived. And I'm not religious. If anything, I would be Church of England, but that was just because that's what I was christened in. But I didn't have a religious upbringing or anything like that. I have to say, the nuns were lovely. They were absolutely amazing and really, really supportive. And I made a lot of friends. Unfortunately, having been in a very enclosed boarding school from the age of 11 till 17, I made lots of friends who taught me a lot about life: boys, pubs, clubbing, music, fashion. And I didn't learn a lot about biology, English, sociology, economics. So I came out of there without a qualification, an academic qualification to my name, but
Mhm.
having learned one hell of a lot.
Oh, I bet. I bet. I went to Catholic high school also,
Mm,
and they were, yeah, pretty worldly. You
mm.
learned a lot about things you didn't know about before.
Yeah, I did learn an awful lot and had a lot of fun and made some very good friends. And also, I was still riding, I was still having my weekly rides and helping out at the stables. And this was the time that when I left the special education school and went into the mainstream school, that was the time when I was registered as blind. And then I got taught mobility and orientation skills, so using a long cane, because
Mhm.
I couldn't see in the dark, and nobody's ever taught me. Even though I went to a special education school, I didn't have any of that. So if I wanted to be going out and about independently after dark, I needed to learn. So I was doing all my long cane training and stuff like that at the age of 17, being helpfully dragged across roads by drunks in the middle of Plymouth whilst the mobility officer was running up the road behind me going, "No!"
My God, that's hilarious.
Yes, yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just, and Plymouth is it has a seafront called the Hoe, and it's very steep, and there are lots of steps on it.
Mhm.
And they kind of graduated me from learning by taking me into the city centre overnight, not overnight, sort of after dark, and making me walk up and down the steps on the Hoe. And there aren't any handrails or anything. And they said if you can do that, you can use a long cane anywhere.
Well,
Yeah,
they might be right.
they were. I didn't fall. I'm not sure I'd want to do it now.
Yeah, that sounds traumatic.
It was next stop, you're in the sea.
Yep. It's kind of
Yes,
like learning to ride by getting on a 3-year-old and having somebody smack it on the butt.
that's the one.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so that was me. And then when I left school, I was unemployed for, oh gosh, nearly a year, maybe a little bit less. And I got a job as a civil servant working for an organisation called the Land Registry, who basically they do what they say. They register land. So if you own a piece of land in the UK, it's registered with the Land Registry, your ownership of that land. And I worked there. I got a job there. That's where I met my husband. And when I realised, actually, I'm earning money here, aren't I? And my first thought actually was, shall I buy my own place? And then my immediate thought was that, no, sod that, buy your own horse.
Aha.
Yeah.
And she's back.
And she's back. So in December, I've got to work this out now. Yeah, in December 1988, I bought my first horse, was a 3-year-old
Oh my.
skewbald cob called Jigsaw. There was actually nothing wrong with Jigsaw. He was a very nice horse. He was not the right first horse for a very nervous, very novice um, woman who was going blind, and at the time also weighed about 7 stone if she'd had a heavy meal. Um,
Got it.
woman
Got it.
who, despite having read all the books and helped out at riding school, when he arrived, I remember standing in the stable looking at him and thinking, shit, what have I done?
I get it. As a riding instructor, there were so many times when somebody would buy a horse and
Mm.
bring it in because they needed some lessons,
Yeah,
and you're looking at this horse going, "This isn't the right one.
no,
Uh-oh,
yeah,
this isn't going to end well."
no. So that was the dream. That was, I got my horse. I got my horse.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and he started the ball rolling. I didn't keep him for very long. I actually sold him to the riding school.
Hmm.
They kept him. He was an absolute favourite at the riding school. They used him as a hunt hireling as well. When the riding school closed down, a family bought him who literally lived up the road on the same road as me and my husband lived. And they kept him. I saw him quite regularly. They kept him, and I think he went to the big green pasture in the sky when he was about 33, 34,
Wow.
and they'd kept him all that time.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's always good when you know where they go
Yeah.
and you know that they've had good care for the rest of their lives. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my husband's horse is actually in Virginia now, and he's in his early 30s. And this winter's been very hard on him. We thought that they were going to put him down,
Mhm.
but he's still kicking,
Well,
and the weather's warming up, and he seems to be eating and being happy.
oh, that's good.
So,
As long as
so
they're
hopefully,
eating, if they're eating, there's always hope.
yep, there always is.
Mhm.
So I'm a fur kid. I like things with fur. So when did Elvis come into your life?
Oh, Elvis! Gonna get him in. See if I can just gonna push the table back so he's got room because he got stuck under the table last time. Come
Oh, poor guy.
here, kid. Come around. So, Elvis here. There he is. See
Hi, Elvis. Good
him?
dog.
Right,
Oh, what a good Elvis.
don't go under the table, you'll get stuck. Um,
He's so cute.
he is my, so Elvis came into my life. I've got to work this out now. 2020. In October 2021.
Mhm.
Um, he is my fifth guide dog.
He's so cute.
So yeah, he took over. To be honest, he came quite quickly. Guide dogs had a lot of problems because of the pandemic with puppy walking and breeding programs stopped and people were unable to puppy walk dogs. So when my previous dog, Quincy, decided it was time to retire, I was anticipating having a bit of a wait for another dog, and I was mentally prepared for it. It happens. because they don't just open another box of dogs and hand them out. They always try
Hmm.
and match you with a dog that suits your life.
Hmm.
So, can you still see me all right?
Yes.
Oh, cool. So Quincy kind of was assessed for retirement sort of approximately this time in 2021.
Hmm.
And I was assessed and put back on the waiting list for another dog with the view that Quincy would retire in September 2021 because they like them to retire when they're about 10.
Hmm.
Okay. Unfortunately, on the 6th of March 2021, I had a really stupid accident with my horse who knocked me off the mounting block. Not, and it wasn't aggressive or anything. It was just, I'll tell you what it was, Michelle. It was menopausal brain fade on my part.
It happens. I've gone through that. I get it.
Yeah, I didn't move the mounting block so she could see up the driveway. I didn't even think about it.
Hmm.
I mounted her so she couldn't see up tried to mount her so she couldn't see up the driveway. And she turned to look what was going on up the driveway. And as she turned her head in one direction, she turned her bum in the other direction and knocked me off a mountain block.
Yep.
Now,
Been there, done that.
I've fallen off that mountain block so many times, but this time I actually came down with my leg on it and I heard my leg snap.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
that was on the 6th of March 2021. Surgery on the 7th of March to have it all pinned back together because I'd broken it in 3 places. And 6 months of not being able to walk, not being able to ride, and had to
Oh,
take
that's awful.
yeah, and also had to take myself back off the guide dog waiting list.
Oh no.
Because I wouldn't have, if a dog had been available, I wouldn't have been in a position to train with a dog.
Hmm.
So come September, which was when Quincy was supposed to be retiring, and 6 months on, I was beginning to ride again, and I was, to be honest with you, I was still quite a lot of pain, but I was getting to that point
For
again. I'm doing
for
it.
our audience, riders are crazy.
Yep,
I
right.
rode in I had a horrible car accident and I rode in casts.
Yeah.
I was still in my walking cast and I might have gotten yelled at a little bit, but I did it.
It
I've
is
heard, yeah.
it is a thing with not being able to see that rehabbing from a broken leg is really difficult because you
Hmm.
can't use crutches very well because you can use crutches or you can find your way around. You
Oh,
can't
that's a
do
problem. Yeah.
both because you can't use a cane or you can't use your dog
Oh, that's
and you
awful.
and use crutches. So I had a lot of difficulty rehabbing, but 6 months later, I was kind of back on my feet and I was kind of back in the saddle, and I had been discharged from the hospital.
Hmm.
So they put me back on. So they came out to reassess me
Hmm.
for going back on the thing. And when they were assessing me, the guy who came to reassess me said, "Oh," he said, I know him because he's been there my whole sort of guide dog owning career, which is a long time. It's 28 years,
Hmm.
29 years actually. 29 years I've had guide dogs. And this guy's been there all the time. And he sort of basically said, "Oh," he said, I wonder if you could do me a favour. He said, "I've got a dog in the car. He's got a bit of a history. He's come back into the program in tragic circumstances. I'm trying to assess him to see if he can be rematched with another owner because they like to rematch them if they're under 5, if they can. Would you mind if I watched you work with him because I've not seen him work with somebody who's blind?" Now, it's a bit of a line, I think, because they never work with somebody who's blind until they're matched. Because the trainers will put blindfolds on, but none of the trainers are blind.
Hmm.
But I just fell for it. I went, "Yeah, okay, absolutely." Walked him through the village, and as I was walking back up the village, I said, "Well, I know it's not, but if this was a matching, I'd bite your hand off for him." And the rest is that doggy was Elvis, and the rest is history.
Aw. Aw. He picked you. He was meant for you.
Yeah, yeah, he is a sweet boy, aren't you? He's very good with the horses as well. Very
That's
good.
wonderful. That was going to be my next question. Because
Yeah.
some dogs are really good with them, some not so much.
Yeah. Some of my previous guide dogs, the horses, I had to put some manners on them. and then they've been absolutely terrified of the horses.
Hmm.
Elvis just seems to get it. He's not scared of them, but he's very respectful. But what he is very good is working around the horses. So if I go to a clinic or
Hmm.
somewhere or a show or something, like for example, last summer, I went to day camp with the riding club and we'd rented a stable because it was at a big old equestrian centre. So we went over in our horse box. We've got a little van, 3.5 ton van, horse box. So Elvis is sat under the front seat of the van like he's on the bus. Get out,
Hmm.
time to the van, get the horse off the van. Hal leads the horse across the yard to
Hmm.
find our stable, and I follow on behind with Elvis carrying a hay net over my shoulder. And there's horses and kids and adults and all sorts of chaos going on. And Elvis is just like, I said, follow, follow. And he's following me, he's following the horse, he's following the horse, and didn't even look at anything else that was going on.
Oh, what a
Yeah.
good boy.
And that's the kind of thing. It's over and above, guide dogs. They're not really trained to do that sort of thing,
No,
but
it takes
he
a
does.
special one, and it
Yeah,
sounds like Elvis was definitely a
yeah,
special one.
he is. He is. So yeah. So that's it. So yeah, 29 years I've been a guide dog owner.
Oh, wow. So
I
how did partnering with your guide dogs help things for your independence?
Oh my word. So my first little doggy, Odine, um, I was still living on my own in a flat in a town called Tavistock, which is here in Devon, and um, using my long cane at night, carrying a cymbal cane during the day,
Hmm.
still had a reasonable amount of useful vision in the right kind of lighting, circumstances. And I had believed that I would have, oh, one day I'll have a guide dog, but I've got too much sight. They're not going to give me a dog. Didn't think about it. And then one day, they have a big fair in the town of Tavistock every October. And I had not forgotten, but it hadn't occurred to me. I was at work late and I hadn't taken my long cane with me to work because if I got off the bus where I normally got off the bus, it was literally walk around the corner and I was at the door at my front door. So I could get around the corner, never had a problem, walk around the corner, get to my front door. Didn't really need to use my long cane to do that. Everybody knew me, so if anybody thought I was in trouble, they'd help me. No problem. Miss Independence. So going home from work this particular night, I got on the bus and the bus driver knew me, regular guy. He said, "Oh, Nick," he said, "You do know that I'm not going your way tonight, aren't you? Because the road's closed because of Goose Fair."
Oh no.
Oh, yeah. He says, "I can drop you up," but he said, "I can't go that way because the road's shut." So I then had to walk a route that I walked in the daylight, but I'd never done in the dark,
Mhm.
with just a cymbal cane in my hand. So this meant crossing a main road, walking through a housing estate, which has a river running through the middle of it, a little stream running
Okay.
through the middle of it,
Oh my.
um, trying to find a narrow little footpath entrance at the far end of the estate, which I would then go up at the side of the school, which would take me up onto the road just by where I would normally get off the bus. So
Oh wow.
but you can imagine, I walked into cars, I fell off pavements, I walked into trees, I ended up in the river. I
Oh my
went up,
God.
I went up
That's
people's
terrifying.
driveways. Um, when I got home, it was a journey that in the daylight would have taken me like 20 minutes, took me nearly an hour. I sat on my doorstep. I was exhausted, I was frightened, I was in pain, I was wet.
Oh no.
And I just sat on my doorstep and cried before I could even have the energy to let myself in.
Oh,
And the next day I phoned up. I had a rehab worker who was the lady who taught me with the long cane all those years ago. And I phoned her up and I said, so how do I go about applying for a guide dog then? Um, and I did my application and they came and assessed me at home and they said, yes, I think you could go to the next thing. And then called me for a 3-day residential assessment where they used to do back then. They don't do this now. It's all changed. This is a long time ago. Called me for a 3-day residential assessment. And I was still convinced all the way through this that they were going to turn around at the end of it and go, no, sorry, you've got too much useful vision. We'd be wasting giving you a dog. But the more I did with them, the more I was convinced this was what I want. So when they sat me down at the, how do you think it went? And I'm like, well, I think it went very well. So what do you think about the potentiality of you having a dog? And I'm like, well, I think I'd really like a dog and I think it would be a real benefit. So when they actually said, yes, good, so do we. The relief
I'm sure the sigh of relief.
Yeah. At the time, I had just got together with my the guy who is now my husband. And literally, I'd moved in with him. I'd put my flat on the market. We were putting his house on the market, and then we were going to buy a house of our own. And he was terrified of dogs.
Really?
I am not kidding you, to the point where if somebody was walking towards him, even with a little tiny terrier, anything, he'd have to cross the road. So I said to him, because I'd done the application before we got together. So when they assessed me, I said, look, I can stop this at any moment. I've managed this long without having a dog. I can carry on. And he went, no, you've got to have a dog. You've got to have a dog. And he apparently he confessed this to me. There was a lady who lived near him who had a guide dog. Don't know who she was, bless her. No idea. But apparently he used to follow her to see what the dog did.
Hey, if that works.
Yeah, and one day he told me what he was doing. I said, don't do that. She'll report you to the police. She probably think you're stalking her. But I went to guide dogs and said, this is the situation. And they took it into account, and they met my first little dog, Odine. She was such a honey. She was such a gentle soul. And I think it was a matter of weeks, and she had him wrapped around her paw completely. And he's never looked back. Nah, and
That's wonderful.
yeah.
He's the right one when he's willing to do that
Yeah,
for you.
absolutely. And bless him, he wasn't a horsey either.
Well, now he is.
Yeah, he's out making a system for me to use pulleys to get water out of a hay soaking tub.
Perfect.
That's what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, my husband was not horsey before he got with me either. And he just kind of gave up and said, well, if this is what you're going to do, then I guess I better be involved in it. And now, and he got to the point where he was eventing at, the 1-star CCI level.
Oh, wow.
Because he taught riding lessons.
Yeah, Hal did try to ride, but he's got back and hip problems, and it was too painful for him. But he's had 2 horses of his own. But he has difficulty mounting. He can't, pardon the expression, I don't know if this means the same thing in America as it means in Britain, but he can't get his leg over.
Yeah. Oh, that does work, actually.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah. Yeah. My husband had back surgery, so he had to stop riding. So
yeah. So
too much risk for not enough.
Yeah. Officially, our horse, Mr. Mayo, belongs to Hal, but that's because we bought him with money that Hal had been left in his dad's will. But he doesn't ride. He's tried, but it's too painful. He can't. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens. And age stinks. Getting old is not for the faint of heart either.
Well, this isn't necessarily an age thing. He injured himself. He injured his back originally when he was about 14, and basically, teenage boys back in the 70s, teenage boys don't injure their back. Get over yourself. And then he used to do a lot of marathon running, and he did himself quite a serious mischief running. I think it was the London Marathon. And basically, he's never really been the same since.
Yeah, the only time you'll ever catch me running is chasing an ice cream truck.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I don't run. So let's talk about the mechanics of riding without sight. Many people, a lot of people can imagine riding inside an arena with support, but hacking out in trail riding feels unimaginable even to me. Can you walk us through how it works?
Yeah, basically, I suppose I'm used to this. Okay, so you've got to imagine that this is my normal. So it doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't seem strange to me. I ride in the same way that I've always ridden, but I either have somebody else with me on horseback or I
Mhm.
have somebody with me on foot. Usually it's Hal.
Mhm.
They don't lead me. I'm not on a lead rope. I
Mhm.
just ride the horse.
Mhm.
Um, I do put a lot of faith in the horse that, you know, they're not going to do anything stupid. Doesn't always work because horses are animals, not
Yeah.
machines. And I do put an awful lot of faith in other people that they're not going to do anything stupid. That's a lot less predictable than the horse not doing something
Yeah.
stupid.
I would assume that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I just ride. I just get on and ride, and like Hal or whoever's with me will go, oh right, okay, come over to your left because there's such and such, or duck because there's a tree, or stop there because I don't really want you riding into that ditch, or the thing I do always get people to lead me through, though, if they're on foot with me, is if we're going through gateways.
Yeah. I can see
There's
why.
Yeah. I did when we bought Hal's last horse, we bought her from a trekking centre, and
Mhm.
we had explained to them that I was totally blind, and they had offered us the possibility of they were closing down, and there were
Mhm.
two potential horses that we could have. So
Mhm.
we went up there to ride, and what we did was we rode one horse each, and then we swapped and we rode the other horse each.
Mhm.
And the idea was for Hal to decide which horse he wanted out of the two of them.
Mhm.
So we rode out, and this girl's riding with us, escorting us out on this ride with these with these horses, and she didn't tell me about the gate.
Oh
And I
no.
very nearly took my kneecap off
Mhm.
of it. And she's going, "Are you all right? How are you getting on with puzzle?" And I'm like, I can barely breathe. I'm in so much pain.
Mhm. I have actually had that happen to me. I
Mm.
have a friend who was a DC mounted park police officer,
Yeah.
and her old police horse Diesel was the size of a bulldozer.
Hmm.
And he would on purpose rub your knees on the trees,
Yeah.
gates,
Yeah.
anything. And he was
Yeah.
so wide when you were going through the gates,
Yeah.
I would pop my knees above the saddle
Mm.
so that I didn't whack my kneecaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's interesting. It is interesting, but it just seems normal. So that's how I do it. That's how I do it. Or if I'm with another person on another horse, wherever possible, they ride next to me or they
Hmm.
ride in front of me.
Hmm.
You know.
That makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, yeah,
Because horses will
yeah.
follow for the most part, most of
Horses
the
will follow them for the most part. I mean, it very much depends on the horse, and also you've got to have a horse that's going to follow politely. You've got a horse that's
time.
going to lead politely, and they aren't halfway through going to go have a complete and absolute argy bargy about who's top horse around here. Mind you, same when you're riding next to each other. I've
Hmm.
been on a few rides where the horses have been playing bitey face while you've been going along the road.
Yeah. I owned mares. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a mare person as well,
Yeah.
so
We
yeah,
had moments.
yeah, absolutely.
So I
Um,
understand entirely. Of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
I'm a little like that too, though. I do the
Yeah.
bitey bitey thing occasionally. It's, I do have that in me.
Yes.
So what
Me
we're gonna
too.
do now is we're gonna watch Nikki riding. And afterwards I'm gonna drop some footage at the end of the video also of Nikki on a horse. And I'm gonna auto describe it to everyone so that everyone can experience it like we all do. So here goes.
This is Nikki on her horse in the arena. A full description is below. You'll hear a caller guiding her to each letter marker and my voice describing the action. Nikki is walking around the corner at the walk, going clockwise in the arena. She has started down the long side and has picked up her rising trot. She is sitting straight with her heels down. She is riding into the next corner and preparing to canter. She has now picked up her canter on the correct lead. She's sitting tall in the saddle. And now at the end of the long side, she has gone back to the trot. And in the corner, she is now walking.
Oh, that was so much fun. I love it. I love it. That is awesome.
Mm.
So at one point you said you did step away from riding because of family responsibilities and things like that. What brought you back to it?
Well, yeah, Hal was ill, well, basically, and I went back into full-time education, left and retrained as a therapist. Those are the reasons why I gave up riding. What brought me back to it was 3 years or thereabouts, and I had never been so miserable in my life. I was completely, it was like part of me was missing. I was so lost and so rudderless. I think that is how I would describe it. And then one day Hal just said to me, well, yeah, okay, we might not have a horse. And I was like, come on, Nick, you're totally blind. You're not earning the money that you were earning before. You can't afford to keep a horse. You're totally blind. You need to, honestly, time to start adulting, really. Behave, grow
Adulting
up.
stinks.
Yeah, grow up, take responsibility. That was where I was at. And I was just really, really, really unhappy. Really, really, my life was empty. And one day Hal said to me, do you know what? You might not have a horse, but there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't go back to having, lessons or going out for rides at riding stables and things like that. Now, I hadn't ridden at a riding school for a very long time, having had my own horses for so long. Going back to try and ride at a riding school when you're totally blind, it's actually quite difficult. Some places were really like, oh, I don't think we want to take you. I don't think that's a very good idea. And also, a lot of the riding schools that were there when I was a kid had closed down, including the one I used to ride at.
Oh no.
But which runs as a livery yard. So, but not a riding school. So, and eventually I went somewhere and they were like, well, okay, we'll take you. It wasn't, how can I put this? They weren't cruel to the horses, but it wasn't the nicest place, and there was a bit of a lack of care. That's how I would put it. Anyway, I got there. Hal took me over there, and they bought this enormous. I mean, he was huge, big grey Irish draft. He was 16'3", if he thought
Wow.
thought he was huge. And I'm
Delicate shining flower. His head
yeah.
was probably bigger than your body.
Yeah, he was huge. And I'm going to say my last horse before all this was a 14 hand section D. So,
Yeah, a little different.
little different. So anyway, I'm looking at him and I put on a considerable amount of weight over the interim. And I have, I was a bit older and I have a bit of arthritis. And I looked at him and I thought, gonna have difficulty getting on the mountain block, let alone getting up there. But once I got up there, the minute my bum hit the saddle, it was like coming home. It was absolutely it was just like, oh God, this is what I've been missing. And he was such a gentleman. And I started having lessons on him, and then we started hacking. I started having rides out on him, and I would do this and I would do that. And I'd been riding him for probably about a year. And the riding school proprietor said to me, he's for sale, don't you? And I was sort of, and I looked at her and I said, well, I'd be devastated when he goes, but I'm not in any position to buy a horse. I've got nowhere to keep a horse. I've got no money to keep a horse. But thank you for letting me know. And will you warn me, when you do sell him, so I don't suddenly come here one day and he's not here,
Yeah, that's devastating.
I was very, 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 very fond of him. And anyway, one day, it just so happened that one day Hal couldn't take me for whatever reason. So my dad, who throughout my riding life had been my partner in all things horsey. He was the guy who used to take me to the riding school when I was little. He was the guy when I had my own horses. He would take me, he would walk with me for miles when I was riding, and stuff like that. And he'd started riding himself actually when he was about the same age as I am now. So he could ride with me. So yeah, so he took me, he must have been in his, well, he's 95 now. So if I think back, he would have been in his late 70s. And he took me to the riding school one day and they brought the horse up. They brought him out of the field. He was filthy. They took a rug off him. They didn't bother grooming him or anything. They went to put the saddle on him. And my dad said, hang on a minute, stop.
Oh.
And the girl stopped. And my dad took my hand and he put my hand on the horse's back and he had a massive sore, open, festering sore on his back.
Oh no, poor guy.
And both me and my dad said, can't ride on that. And the girl said, oh, are you sure? I said, yeah, no, you can't put a saddle on that. That's got to be really, really painful. How long has that been like? She said, oh, well, we did notice blood on his number yesterday. That's more
They
than
didn't look?
yeah, on his number, on his saddle pad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I'm not riding him, I said, I'll pay you, but I'm not riding him. And she went, are you sure? I said, yeah, here's your money. But he can't be, I can't ride him. In all consciousness, I cannot ride a horse with that under a saddle.
Mhm.
So anyway, we left the yard and we drove home, and it was probably about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour journey by car from the riding school to where Hal and I were living at the time. And by the time we'd got home, my dad and I had worked out between us how we were going to buy him.
I would have loved your dad. I would love your dad.
You would love my dad. You would
I would love
absolutely
your
love
dad.
my dad. And we talked to, and Dad talked to Hal about it, and Hal said, "Oh yeah, I'm all for it, but we've got to find somewhere to keep him." Now, when I'd given up 3 years earlier, um, I hadn't sold my pony. I'd put her out on loan.
Hmm.
So I used to see her quite regularly. So I was talking to the lady about it, the horse Magnum, he was called, this horse. I was talking to the lady about Magnum, and she said, well, why don't you bring him here? Are you sure? Yeah, bring him here. She had a field. She had about 6 horses of her own, and she had
Hmm.
a field, no stables or anything like that. So we we bought Magnum and we took him over to Claire's, and he, in amongst her ponies, he looked even bigger.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah,
And I
and
bet the ponies beat him up too.
no, they were very good with him. They were very good with him. In fact, she'd fenced off an area of the field so he could be on his own, so they could get to know each other. When she went down the next morning, they'd all jumped the fence and were in with him.
Gotta love ponies.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was Magnum. And then, but he was an old guy when I got him, and I got him in like April. So coming to on towards the end of the summer, I thought, well, he's not going to be able to outwinter, bless him. He's going to need to go somewhere where I can put him in a stable overnight at least. So I looked around and I found a local farmer. Oh, I could have walked there from where we lived if I'd wanted to. And he said, well, you can bring him here. I can do you a stable. You can have this field. We'll help you we'll help you look after him when you need us to. That's absolutely fantastic. Great, absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So I told the lady that I was going to take him away, and she went basically, oh, okay. And then she phoned me up a couple of days later, the day before I was going to go on holiday for a fortnight. I said, I don't want Sapphire anymore. You need to come and take her off my land, which was my pony, my little Welsh pony.
People are crazy.
Yeah. So, and she was her daughter's pony. She got her for her daughter. So God knows and what her daughter thought of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, in a panic, I was in a complete state, and beloved Hal phoned up Father Farmer Jim and basically explained the situation to him. And God love him, he said, well, I'll charge you a little bit more. I'm not going to be able to give you another stable because I haven't got the spare capacity. And we said, that's all right, the pony's used to living out. He said, yeah, you can bring them both over. So we did. So from there, so I went from not having a horse for 3 years to suddenly having two.
That's great. So was Sapphire still rideable for you?
She was, bless her. So I had to stay, and once Magnum's back healed up, he was. So I had two rideable horses.
Mhm.
Sav had she had something called mast cell cytoma, which means she had lots of little mast cell tumors all over her. And unfortunately, she did get one where her girth went, so I did have to stop riding her after a while.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah. And actually, whilst we had the two of them, that is when Hal suddenly turned around to me and said, I think I'm going to learn to ride. And the first horse he rode was Sapphire, with me trying to teach him in an open field.
Great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I taught my husband how to ride up until he got to about training level eventing,
Mm.
which is the step below preliminary in Great
Yeah.
Britain.
Mm.
And that was enough.
Mm.
That was enough. I then farmed him out to my friends
Yes.
because the husband heard, "You are not good enough. I do not love you anymore." And then
Uh,
he'd get cranky.
yeah.
And then I'd get cranky back, like, "You moron, why don't we just do this?" And so it just did not go well. So I passed him on to instructor friends of mine and said, "Here, you guys get to teach them. I'm just going to be the wife,"
Yeah. I
which worked a
went,
lot better for us.
you've got to go to a riding school because I am not a teacher and I can't see what you're doing.
Exactly. There is that too.
Yeah.
So this leads to something really important. What inspired you to start the Blind Riders Network?
Right. Okay. The Blind Riders Network. It's so many years ago, before I gave up my horses and started riding again, I was listening to an audio version of a horsey magazine that we have here in the UK called Your Horse.
Hmm.
And I was actually in the bath listening to it, and suddenly there's an article about something called the Blind Riders Group. And I'm like, sorry, what the who? Um, and they were talking about how they held annual get-togethers, teaching and competitions for blind riders. And I'm like, where do I sign?
Hmm.
So I got involved with them, and I did a couple of years where we went and had a lot of fun. It was great fun. We did a lot of teaching, a lot of practical teaching. Go at school, and a lot of people going there weren't in the fortunate position that I was of having their own horses. They were people that rode for the RDA or that sort of thing. So we did all different levels of riding, but we did a dressage competition at the end of it, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And also did like tests on stable management and stuff like that. And so I knew in my heart of hearts I'd met other people over the years who were VI blind or visually impaired and rode, but not many.
Hmm.
And so that was great. But unfortunately, the guy that ran it passed.
Oh.
He wasn't he wasn't well and he passed. So it all kind of ended,
Mhm.
sadly. And I kept thinking about it and I kept thinking about it. And then when we moved here, I started writing a blog, which is called Poo Picking in the Dark, just as to journal um, the adventures that Hal and I have, um, me being blind and him being on the spectrum and having chronic back problems, just doing it all ourselves. Um,
Mhm.
and I kept noticing that people would comment, "Oh, right, I'm don't see very well, or this person doesn't see very well and rides, or do you know so and so, and do you have any advice for somebody who wants to ride, or whose child wants to ride, or used to ride but has lost their sight?" And so I thought there is a need for this, isn't there? So originally I started a Facebook group called Blind Riders UK. Now
Mhm.
that still runs. It's a closed group, and I'm quite strict. It is really only for UK residents. Not that I'm jingoistic. It's just that there was a lot of things where people were coming in from other countries and they were talking about things, and we were going, "Oh, I think it's different there than it is here." I don't really
Mhm.
understand what you're talking about. Different terminology, different,
Yeah.
different structures, different things, different that. Although, as a blind person, the problems were still the same. So
Mhm.
then I thought, well, there's a need for this internationally. So I then started the Blind Riders Network, which is another Facebook group, exactly the same as Blind Riders UK, but it's an open group, and anyone from anywhere in the world can join. So that was that. I also do, and again, this is mainly UK based. Um, I A group of us got together and decided that we wanted to start something which would be more of a charity, more of an organisational thing that would campaign for the rights and accessibility, access and things for blind people within the equestrian community, because again, this will be across the board and across the world. Unfortunately, we do hit up a lot against a lot of barriers, real or perceived, whatever. But then when we started looking into it, we're spread all over the country, and a lot of us do various different jobs or have family commitments, and it became quite difficult. My original was to start it as a charity, but it's legally very complicated. So I now have also visually impaired equestrians guiding change, which is kind of the campaigning arm of Blind Riders UK, really, is how I put it. So that's how it all started. But we have with the network and with Blind Riders Network and Blind Riders UK, we have blind individuals who are, looking after their own horses, or riding at riding schools, or riding at like places like the Riding for the Disabled Association, or whatever their country's equivalent of disability riding. We also have coaches, a lot of coaches who teach riders who are visually impaired. We have parents of visually impaired children. We have children of visually impaired adults. We have partners of visually impaired riders, all coming to say, hey, I want to be part of this. How can I help? How can I get help? And that's what it is, basically.
Oh, it's amazing. It's a wonderful group. I mean, I pop in almost every day just to kind of see what's going on. There's so many amazing people in there. It's so much fun. So it's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful.
There,
So
there is another group as well, which has nothing to do with me, but I am a member of, even though I probably shouldn't be, and that is the US-based blind equestrian community. And they seem to do amazing stuff. I look at them and go, yeah, that's who I want to be.
it's with anything you put your mind to, you can do.
Yeah.
It's really fairly incredible. So before we finish up, I want you to take a step back for a moment. For someone who's listening who might be losing their vision and believes that they're something that they love so much, like we love riding, isn't possible anymore, what would you want them to know?
Right. There are three things that I want people to know. Well, actually, there's probably more than three things. And I also want parents of children who are been diagnosed with sight loss, and the partners of people who have been diagnosed with sight loss to know. It's hard work, but it shouldn't define you. It's just one aspect of who you are. And if there is something that makes your soul sing, it doesn't matter what it is, then you should really try and incorporate that into your life at whatever level. So I ride horses. My brother's a musician. I know people who are ramblers. I know people who are cooks. I know people who are involved with the theatre. It can be done. You just need to be able to think laterally. The second thing is that, and this is particularly for parents, I see posts on social media quite regularly going, oh, little Johnny's being diagnosed with XYZ. We want to make a bucket list of things for him to do before he loses his sight. And it makes me cry, because that sends the message that when you lose your sight, your life is over. It is not. Go and do all these amazing things with your child, because they're amazing things to do with a child, regardless of whether that child is visually impaired or not. But don't sell it as you have to do these before you lose your sight, because that sends the wrong message. Yes, life is different, but it's not necessarily worse. It can go on with the right support and the right attitude. Life with being blind can be, I mean, I have a fantastic life. Absolutely love my life. I can't say it would be better if I couldn't see. I don't know because I don't know what path I would have gone down. I might have gone down a very different path, and my life might be very different in a bad way. All I can say is it would be different. It's no guarantee that not being blind would have made my life better.
Mhm. That's
Um,
really powerful.
yeah, yeah. It really is. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be build up a support network. I have a fantastic support network around me, but you need to know where your boundaries lie. You need to know when you need to be honest about when you need help and when you're not dealing with something very well, and you need to not be afraid to ask for help. And there is lots of help out there in all sorts, maybe not so much with the horses, but in all sorts of walks of life. There are lots of people out there who've been there before. There are lots of organizations that can help, can point you, can signpost you.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, even as a sighted person,
Mm.
it's hard to ask for help.
Yeah, it is. It
And
really is. Mhm.
that's something that I think a lot of us could learn from, to be
Mm.
honest. So, outside of horses,
Mhm.
this is my favorite question. What makes your heart sing? I know that horses make your heart sing, but what
Oh,
else?
horses make my heart sing. So, outside of horses, um, I am a masseuse, an aromatherapist, a reflexologist, and a Reiki master.
Wow, you're busy.
I am. Well, I actually retired my practice at the end of last year because I was having some health problems, and I was having a mystery pain, and I was finding it very painful to treat people for myself. So I've actually retired my practice now. But that I'm still very interested in those sort of alternative health things. I still take part in a lot of Reiki shares and send Reiki regularly to people and stuff, and animals a lot. Um, we haven't done this for a while because Hal's hips have been bad, but we have a tandem. we go tandem,
Oh,
we go tandem cycling.
that
Um,
sounds like fun.
yeah, it is fun. Over the years, we've been for miles. We've done some with a group of friends. We've done some quite long distance, like where we spent a week and sort of started at one place and cycled and stayed overnight and cycled and stayed overnight and cycled and stayed overnight and then ended up in another place. We've done quite a few of those over the years, so that's fun. But well, as I say, we haven't done it. We didn't do it at all last year because Hal was suffering with his hips. You could get on it. So yeah, that was the thing. So I'm hoping that's going to return
That
later
sounds like so much
this
fun.
year.
That
Um,
sounds
I live in a beautiful area. I live in between Dartmoor and Exmoor, and I'm about 10 miles away from the coast. So walking on the moor, walking on the beach, it's a beauty. I live where a lot of people come on holiday, basically. So it's beautiful around here. So we like to walk. There's a certain gentleman around here who likes to walk too. He's just walked off actually. And yeah, you know, books. I'm an inveterate reader. I've always got at least one book on the go. I usually listen to audiobooks, although sometimes I read in Braille. For some strange reason, and I don't know why this is, Braille is for serious non-fiction and audio is for fiction. So if I'm reading a
fun.
factual book or a textbook, like when I was doing all my learning on my trade, or I would read it in Braille. But if
Mhm.
I want to relax, then I'm reading it in audio.
Huh.
And I don't
Whereas
know
I
what.
like audiobooks too. I mean, I love to just like if especially if I have something to do and I
Mm,
have to do something, I like to listen to the audiobooks while I'm
mhm.
doing whatever I'm doing.
Yeah,
Makes it go faster.
yeah, yeah. One of my favorite, one of my favorite authors is Terry Pratchett, and
I
I
love Pratchett.
love the Discworld, and I'm currently reading all the way through the Discworld books at the moment, for about the fourth time.
Yeah, I've read every single one of them.
Mm,
I love Terry Pratchett.
yeah,
I own, I think, every single one of the things he ever wrote.
yeah.
And I
It's good.
periodically go back through and read again.
Yeah, I do, and it's one of my. If I'm feeling a bit like, oh, life's a bit difficult, then I go to the disc.
I don't blame you. I
Yeah.
actually have a little box that's the librarian.
Oh, wow.
And if I have to take my wedding ring off,
Yeah. The
I'll
library
put it in the
example.
box so I
Yeah.
don't lose it.
Mhm.
And my husband actually keeps his wedding ring there because when we first got married, I was giving him a riding lesson and his ring was flat and it was cutting into his, it
Oh,
was cutting
yeah.
into his finger. So I
Yeah.
put it on my thumb. I
Mm.
lost it in the mud at the pasture gate and we thought it was gone. I was so upset. So we just bought another one and he
Yeah.
was like, it's okay, it's okay. The next year we went back to the farm that I had taught him on
Mm.
and one of the ladies looked at his hand and said, "Oh, it's not your ring. We thought it might be yours."
Oh,
And he's like, "What?" And they had found his ring.
oh, wow.
Isn't that wild?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So now he has two, which he doesn't wear
Yeah. Yeah.
because they cut into him.
Yeah.
So anyway, so thank you so much, Nikki, for sharing your story with me and for
You're
all the
welcome.
work you're doing to connect all of us riders around the world. And thank you so much to everyone else for watching and listening to this episode of Thriving with Vision Loss. If you love this conversation as much as I did, please like and subscribe and let us know in the comments what stood out to you. You'll find links in the description to explore eleVIVO's free 6-month trial for individuals, as well as all the blind riders Facebook pages and stuff like that. And you'll find all those links in the description. And remember, vision loss does not mean loss of joy, creativity, contribution, or possibilities. Until next time, keep thriving and have the best day ever.
Here's a video of Nikki competing on her paint horse, Florence. You'll hear my voice over top, giving you play-by-play of this, and you'll also hear the caller telling her when to do the certain movements. Nikki is on a paint horse, and she is riding down the long side away from the camera, and now she is coming around the corner and turning up the center of the arena towards the camera, still at the trot. The person in black is the caller, and she has stepped out of the way so Nikki can ride a straight line. At the end of the arena, Nikki turns to the right and then turns diagonally across the arena so that she will now be going in the counterclockwise direction, still at the trot. Her heels are down. She is sitting up straight. She is now beginning a large circle, 20 meters in diameter, still at the rising trot. She has finished the circle, and now she is coming diagonally across the arena again, so she ends up in the clockwise direction, which is called the right rein. She's coming around the corner, still at the trot. And now she is turning towards the caller, walking into the middle of the arena and halting facing the caller. Vicky is smiling as she stands between two large horses in a sunny paddock. One hand rests on a horse while the other holds a walking stick. The horses with long black manes and white facial markings stand calmly beside her. A fence runs across the foreground with green fields, hedges, houses, and a clear blue sky in the background. The scene conveys warmth, companionship, and a close bond between the person and the horses. This picture was also used at the beginning of the previous video as a placeholder. Thanks for tuning into our series, Thriving with Vision Loss. If you would like to learn more about thriving with blindness or low vision, check out eleVIVO.com. If you have questions or would like to be featured in an upcoming episode of our Thriving with Vision Loss series, email Michelle B at eleVIVO.com. Links are in the description. The white letters on the black background fade as Circles by Classless Act plays.